Now, Gabriel was released from jail the next day, and his conditions of release were that he has no contact with myself or the children. They only allowed him contact with his own son, which is not my son, but I mean he is. He's 50% in my home for the last 6 years. I've been raising his boy just as much as he's been raising mine. Um, Now this is a court order, conditions of release, that was put into place at a court proceeding that I was not party to. I was not sent a copy of this order. I was not, like, this is not my order. Gabriel had called the department many times asking how me and the kids were doing and asked what needed to be done to get his family back together. He insisted that the department provide him with parenting classes or anger management, whatever services they deemed necessary to reunite him with his family again. And he informed our worker that he was willing to do whatever it took. Our worker refused him any services. She told him that he would have to figure it out on his own. He was refused by the department on multiple occasions with the basis that it was because he was not the children's biological blood father, even though he had been acting as their father for years. We had filed our taxes together as married for the past 2 years. The department chose to ignore that fact. They chose to ignore that Gabriel had created a substantial parent-child relationship with all of my children over the years. Over the years, Gabriel, acting as their father, had attended school plays, various meetings, parent-teacher conferences, physical therapy, softball games, and a never-ending slew of all other activities, bringing with him emotional support, physical involvement, transportation, food, whatever was needed, and all things financial. Parental responsibility means the care, support, and control of the child in a manner that provides for the child's necessary physical needs, including food, clothing, and shelter, and also provides for the mental and emotional health and development of the child. Blood does not replace actual time in and love given. Family is what counts, and children do not care about blood. My children were not having any of their needs met by a blood-sharing biological father. They were non-existent. Gabriel stood up where all others had sat down. Gabriel offered to bring in family photo albums to show that they had been functioning as a family for years. Vacations, camping, floating, rock climbing, and exploring the woods. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then we have so much to say. The department's view was that that wasn't enough to outweigh the negatives. We disagree with that. We feel that it shows an active lifestyle with constant interaction with our children. There's no TV in nature, so what it shows is two parents who are choosing activities for their children that involve actually paying attention to each other. Since the department wouldn't help Gabriel, we both recognized that Gabriel still needed something, that something needed to be done, whether or not the department was going to do it and help him with it or not. So we decided that we were going to just put our own plan into action. And Gabriel enrolled himself into anger management, and he began to search for a parenting class. Now, some parents may, at times, be acting against the interests of their children. Creates a basis for caution, but it is hardly a reason to discard wholesale these pages of human experience that teach that parents generally do act in the child's best interest. The statist notion that governmental power should supersede parental authority in all cases because some parents abuse and neglect children is repugnant to American tradition. All right. I found that on the internet. I thought it was beautiful. Beautiful. I have a little Montana code. We're going to call this story MC code 41-3-202. And this is called Action on Reporting. And if the child's interview is audio taped or videotaped, an unedited audio tape or videotape with audio track must be made available upon request for unencumbered review by the family. The department still refuses to provide a copy of whatever audio or video that they have, even though requested many times. Now, also, the same code, Action on Reporting, and this is subsection 6. The investigating social worker within 60 days of commencing an investigation shall also furnish a written report to the department and, upon request, to the family. Subject to these subsections 5B and 5C, the department shall maintain a record system documenting investigations and determinations of child abuse and neglect cases. Now, what that is that's supposed to be a law. That's supposed to be a law. All right, I'm going to try it again. MC code 41-3-202. This is one among the many, many, many laws that apparently the CPS do not have to abide by. They make their own laws. 60 days from November 24th is January 23rd. Our worker's report was not done in the 60 days that the law required. Her report timed out, and therefore no determination was made. The department still refuses to provide me with a copy of that report. That entire report. They won't give it to me. Now, per CFS Policy Manual 202-3, this is the CPS Montana Policy Manual, the investigating must follow the SAMS FFA interview protocol that is set forth in the FFA Field Guide. This interview protocol requires face-to-face contact and individual interviews with all members of the household in which the abuse and or neglect has allegedly occurred. The protocol also defines that the order that these interviews must occur. If the interview protocol cannot be followed, then the reason must be documented. Once contact with the child and or parents has been made, the FFA interview protocol must be completed unless the report is determined to be unfounded or it is an anonymous report, and if independent, corroborative, and attributable information is not established within 48 hours of initiating the investigation. Now, our worker did not talk to Gabe's son at all. He wasn't included in this in any way. Why? We don't know. A thorough investigation was not done, as he is very much part of the family as my children are. He was included in a prior investigation, so they knew him as part of our family, but this investigation, he wasn't even considered part of our family. Now, why he wasn't even questioned once, especially since he's with his dad 50% of the time, and if Gabe was so dangerous that he couldn't be around any of the other children, then why was nothing done about his son? Not that we wanted anything to be done about his son. That's not, it was just that if he's so fucking dangerous, then they would have included his son in on it as well. Obviously, they didn't consider him that dangerous, or possibly maybe just only dangerous to my children. I'm not sure how that. But February 3rd, 2016, it is 11 days after January 23rd. January 23rd was when the 60 days provided by law was supposed to be up. Angela's case was timed out for a week by then. Still, no contact had been made with me, and no determination had been made. It had been over 60 days since the case started, and their complete silence had left the impression that they were no longer involved. They treated the situation like it was no big deal, and so myself and Gabriel assumed that we could just begin doing the job of fixing the family ourselves. A substantial display of gross negligence by the department was committed for not attempting to prevent future negative involvement if they considered Gabriel such a danger, especially if he was asking them for help and willing to do whatever was needed to be done. It is the department's job to provide the family with services in those situations that they consider to be threatening in order to ensure present and future safety of the children and to strengthen and maintain the parent-child relationship. February 3rd, I allowed Gabriel into my home. I no longer had a protection plan with the department. It had expired over 30 days previous. I hadn't heard from the department in over 30 days. I didn't see why I couldn't do this. He came over and he helped me with the kids. I had the terrible, terrible flu. And he had not been allowed to see the children since November, and he had just had to miss Christmas and New Year's as a family for the first time since we'd been together. Eon missed his brothers and sisters, and the children missed him. They were sad and confused about why they couldn't see their dad or Eon, which is Gabriel's son. Gabriel apologized to Mario and to the children, and he explained that it wasn't his choice that he couldn't see them, so that they didn't feel like it was because that he didn't want to see them. He assured them that he did. He was truly sorry, and he was willing to do whatever it took to make it right. And the children were just grateful that he was back. Gabe made supper, he tucked the kids into bed, and he said prayers, just like he would any other night. The next morning, Mario went to school and proudly showed his cold lunch, saying, "Look, my daddy made me cold lunch." The school called the department, and the department called the police, and Gabriel was arrested that day, February 3rd, 2016. The department refused to acknowledge this family, and they turned their backs on us. And then they took their children for doing something that the department should have been helping the family with in the first place. Yep, we all know where I'm going with this. They took my children. Reasonable efforts. MC code. This is a law. 41-3-423. Reasonable efforts required to prevent removal of a child or to return. The department shall make reasonable efforts to prevent the necessity of removal of a child from the child's home and to reunify families that have been separated by the state. Reasonable efforts include, but are not limited to, voluntary protective service agreements, developmental of individual written case plans, specifying state efforts to reunify families, placement in the least disruptive setting possible, provision of services pursuant to a case plan, and periodic review in each case to ensure timely progress towards the reunification or permanent placement. In determining preservation or reunification services to be provided and in making reasonable efforts at providing preservation or reunification services, the child's health and safety are of paramount concern. No efforts were made to prevent the removal of my children. Me and Gabriel would not have been unreasonable had we just been given proper information. It was just never given to us. That was the department's job, and they refused to do their duty on the presumption that they knew what would be best for the family better than the family itself. The department ignored all other options, and any end result of that situation, be it the permanent removal of Gabriel from the family or the removal of the children from the home, would generate the complete extermination of a perfectly happy and loving family. On the department's website it says, workers investigate reports and help parents find solutions to problems that may interfere with their children's safety. If the parents are amendable, the social workers can help the family get in-home services such as home management, skill training, parenting education classes, modeling skills for parents, and supervised visitations. These can be provided directly by the CFSD social workers or by private agencies on contract with the division. Division policy is to provide protective services to children in their own homes when it is possible to do so without risking their safety. Why then wouldn't the department provide Gabriel with a treatment plan and become involved in order to prevent removal? Shouldn't they be disclosing to the parents any expectations and or pertinent information before the department just declares war on a family's personal and emotional well-being? They should. They should. February 5th, 2 days after Gabriel was arrested. So the abuser is in jail. The threat removed, let's say, you know. A social worker named Tom Irvine. And I say your name because people need to know. And if you come across a Tom Irvine, this man, I will not tell you my personal opinion, but you just stay tuned and listen to my story. Tom Irvine knocks on my door with Elisa from Evolution Services. The plan was to make me do a drug test right there and force me to comply to a warrantless emergency removal. I didn't even get to say goodbye to my older children as they were taken directly from school. I had called the school to see if I could pick up my older ones so that I could explain to them what was going on and take them to my mother's house myself. I was told that I was not allowed. The school told me that if I had called them again, that it would be considered harassment. Just 2 weeks previous, I had arranged a meeting at the school to discuss the details of my daughter's progress, and they were all commending my parenting then. My daughter was taking great bounds and leaps from where she had started out, and I was a great mom then, as they all patted ourselves on our backs. Job well done. I was always considered an avid advocate for my children in every aspect of their development because I care about what kind of adults they have the potential to be. No warrant and no imminent emergency. Children may not be removed from their home by police officers or social workers without notice and a hearing unless the officials have a reasonable belief that the children were in imminent danger. This is Ram versus Rubin in the Ninth Circuit Court, 1997. I have a lot of case law shit in here. I like to learn. The CPS must comply with the warrant clause of the 14th Amendment or be sued for violating it. The CPS does not have a legal right to conduct an investigation of alleged child abuse or neglect in a private home without your consent. In fact, removing a child from your home without your consent, even for several hours, is a seizure under federal law. Once again, all of this is supposed to stand. All of this was supposed to protect myself, my rights, my children, my family. But the CPS get to make their own rules. They get to do whatever they want, and they are not bound by the same laws that everyone else is for some god-awful reason. State versus Hatter, 1983. The extingent circumstances exception to the warrant clause only applies when an immediate major crisis in the performance of duty afforded neither time nor opportunity to apply to a magistrate. Social workers who, in pursuit of a child abuse investigation, invaded a family home without a warrant, violating the Fourth Amendment rights of both children and parents. Contrary to the assumption of hundreds of social workers, the Ninth Circuit held that the Fourth Amendment applies just as much to a child abuse investigation as it does to any criminal or other governmental investigations. Social workers are not exempt from the requirements of the Fourth Amendment when they act alone. They are not exempt from its rules if they are accompanied by a police officer. Police officers are not exempt from the requirement, even if all they do is get the front door open for the social worker. This would be intimidation, coercion, and threatening. The general rule is that unreasonable searches and seizures are banned, but the second part of the rule is the most important in this context. All warrantless searches are presumed unreasonable. The department did not follow any aspect of law or policy in this matter. They displayed a disgusting abuse of power, violating the Constitution and trying to justify it by manifesting an emergency that could not even be possible with Gabriel in jail. If a state were to attempt to force the breakup of a natural family over the objections of the parents and their children without some showing of unfitness and for the sole reason that to do so was thought to be in the children's best interest, I should have little doubt that the state would have intruded impermissibly on the private realm of family life in which the state cannot enter.